What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another reaction. You know what I'm saying? We got a reaction from my dog, Steinixos. The Databook problem. He's the one that explained to us the difference between, I think, attack potency and destructive capacity. You know what I'm saying? Shout out my dog. It's always going to pre-file a little like. You know what I'm saying? When we sub, we make sure we hit that bell, man. If you want to see more content like this, make sure you sub to your boy. Shout out to y'all. We hit 103. We gained 2 subscribers overnight somehow, which is amazing. Not even overnight, because we ended stream like in the morning, and then I get on the stream now and we already are up 2. So shout out to y'all. But subscribe, I find the content, we watch it together. Discord comms link down below, so you can see when these streams go live and when videos come out, and you can watch this live. YouTube chat bottom right, Twitch chat top right, and yeah, just gonna get straight into it.
Hey guys, Steinixos here. So
Turn up
today,
the speed.
as part of my power scaling fundamental series,
it's
we're
already,
going to
the
talk
playback
about
speed's already
something I
up.
personally consider one of the most irritating issues in the entire power scaling community. That is the databook problem. Now, before I actually get into what that means, I have a small confession to make. I hate power scaling. Well, that's not entirely true. You see, I actually love power scaling.
I know what you mean,
It's why so many of the videos I make revolve around it. And it's why I'm doing this fundamentals of power scaling series in the first place. So no, I don't hate power scaling itself. What I genuinely hate is the culture that surrounds it. And I've explained this before in my power scaling problem video, where I talk about how, at its root, the biggest issue in the community is this endless pursuit of trying to upscale people's favorite characters or their favorite.
Yeah, upscale can be reasonable. Like, if we're watching a martial arts TV show and this guy beats this guy and there are no nuances like, oh, this dude had a broken leg or something, yeah, it's upscale, right? And then but then there's a limit to it, because if this guy loses to this other guy, but he beat that guy, you can say the guy who beat the original guy has been upscaled, right? But you can't go, oh yeah, this guy's auntie's cousin's uncle says he's stronger than him. Oh, that's upscale, right? Upscaling with direct feats is fine. Upscaling through statements, like a direct feat applying to someone who just with a statement is above somebody else, is kind of a ridiculous upscale. But at the end of the day, power scaling is all the logic thing, where it's like, depending on what logic you use, you can get somebody who is like pebble level. Start like, it's be trying to downscale Goku because a rock hurt him or some shit like that. You get what I'm saying? You can argue anything, but the time where it becomes outlandish is when you ignore the nuances and things like that.
Series to the absolute maximum, and this happens even if it means throwing away basic literacy, basic logic, and basic common sense. It's what I call the upscaling problem. Now, this moronic environment shows up everywhere in power scaling, but the place where it reveals itself in its purest, most concentrated form is in any conversation involving databooks. You see, databooks are a perfect breeding ground for this kind of nonsense. First of all, most manga databooks are written in Japanese, which instantly opens the door for mistranslations, half translations, or wildly inconsistent interpretations. And when that happens, people can bend a single line to fit whatever agenda they already wanted to push. Secondly, most people aren't actually checking the databooks themselves. Even when someone flashes a page on screen, almost nobody goes back to read it, confirm the translation, or, even more importantly, understand the context behind whatever statement is being used. So what ends up spreading in the community is not the truth, but whatever the loudest or most popular content creator claims the databook said. And when you combine that with the way common sense gets thrown straight into the trash because of the upscaling problem, the result is predictable. Databooks become a weapon of mass stupidity, turning power scaling discourse into one of the most
a weapon of mass stupidity,
toxic, circular, and flat out unproductive conversations you can have online. Now, with all of that said, I want to take this opportunity to deep dive into some very popular and very specific examples. The goal here is simple: to highlight exactly how and why these misunderstandings spread so easily, and also so I don't have to deal with these exact same arguments every time they pop up. Now, firstly, it's really important to understand that there is absolutely nothing wrong with databooks themselves. In fact, databooks are an essential part of many series because they give the author extra room to share biographical information, character notes, ability descriptions, heights, weights, all the little details they may not have had the time or space to include in the main story. You see, that is the intended function of a databook. It is meant to summarize events that happened in the manga and provide additional background information. The purpose is usually not to overhaul, rewrite, or contradict basic facts established in the primary source material. But the problem is,
the purpose is normally just to add on and like explain further some of the nuances present. rather than like, oh, it was said here, oh, it has to be true. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, it's likely to be true, but if it contradicts something else, and then that thing is integral to the entire story, it is much more plausible to believe that this was something that the author didn't take into account.
That many people don't understand this, and because of the current culture around power scaling, where people are endlessly searching for any scrap of information to upscale their favorite characters to infinity and beyond, common sense is just thrown completely out the window. So let's take an extremely clear example. Gin's Bankai speed in Bleach. It is a direct, explicit fact in the manga that Gin's Bankai operates relative to the speed of sound. We know this because in chapter 400, Gin literally demonstrates this by clapping to produce a sound, and then he explains that his Bankai extends at 500 times that speed.
That is aura, bro. And they can explain, ask you to explain your ability. You just go, oh, you said how fast? 500 times faster than that, give or take. Like, that's hard, but it's like someone asked you that, right? And then you like stop them mid them asking you to explain it. You go, wait. Saw that lightning just struck? Yeah. 10 times faster than that. Like, what, bro?
500. And
that's
even
motion.
That number ends up being an overestimation because later, in chapter 414, when Gin talks to Aizen, he outright tells us that his Bankai does not actually move as fast as the previously stated Mach 500 speed.
But faster.
Now, some people try to fabricate a completely imaginary scenario where Gin supposedly had told Aizen a different speed than the one he told Ichigo. But there is zero evidence of this anywhere.
Context
so when Gin tells Aizen that his Bankai is slower than what he initially claimed, he is obviously referring to the only speed he ever mentioned, the one he told to Ichigo literally 14 chapters prior, Mach 500. So again, Gin's Bankai, in its base state, that is without taking into account the boost provided by Butorenjin, is actually slower than Mach 500. Again, this is not my opinion, and this is not some subjective controversial interpretation.
Right.
It is just a plainly stated fact in the manga, the canon source material itself, that anyone who can read English above a third grade level is able to clearly see.
So if someone tries to use that claim, oh, it moves 500 times faster than the speed of sound, then it's like, because people like stretching things out. Like, they'll go, oh, he stated it moves 500 times faster than that. And then let's say there's a character whose exact speed is 500 times faster than the speed of sound via, like, multipliers or whatever. And they go, well, if that's the case, he should be able to touch him. But this statement, which is the basis of your logic, it stated it's going to be slower, then that argument completely, like, crumbles. But, you know, because we'll go data books or this, that, and we'll lack the literacy to check whether something is, like, consistent, if there are nuances there, or if what was said was subjective, because characters themselves sometimes are false narrators. They do not tell objective fact. They have a reason to lie. They have a reason to deceive, etc., etc.
And even then, to a normal reader who isn't poisoned by this broken, agenda-driven power scaling culture, being even close to Mach 500 is still extremely fast and extremely impressive. But to someone who is part of this online cesspool, someone determined to upscale Bleach characters ad infinitum, this single fact of a captain-class combatant, close to the end of the Arrancar arc over 400 chapters in, being not at minimum massively faster than light, much less even slower than Mach 500, becomes incredibly inconvenient. So to grasp at even the faintest of straws, what these people try to do instead is run to the data books. They'll say, oh no, look, the Bleach official character book 3, Unmasked, says Gin was actually lying to Aizen. The databook confirms his original Mach 500 statement was true, so his base Bankai actually does move at Mach 500 instead of being slower. And the wild thing is that you'll even see this repeated on the official Reddit respect thread for Jin. But now, remember what I said about databooks. The whole point of a databook is not usually to override canon or change foundational facts established.
It's literally to recap what happened with more context and nuance. But as we've seen, after this was stated, it is directly said, I was lying. So in this data book that is quoting what this is said, hence the quotations, you have to know that that's not true, gang.
In the manga, the actual source material, it is simply to summarize what happened in the manga. And when you actually look at the data book, the line which they are referring to, which is on page 46, it is not disputing what Gin said to Aizen. It is simply summarizing the dialogue between Gin and Ichigo from chapter 400. The same conversation we already know. The data book is not introducing a contradiction. It is just restating what happened. And honestly, in many of these situations, you don't even need to have this basic common sense. You just need need a shred of intellectual honesty, because if you simply read the very next page, page 47 of the same databook, it explicitly confirms exactly what Gin told Aizen, that he lied about the speed of his blade, and that the true danger of his bankai is not the speed at all,
it's the
but
poison.
the hidden poison.
Yeah,
so even
I
the
know
data,
that much.
The thing these people cling to, ends up reaffirming the manga's exact sequence of events. It fully supports the canon explanation. So I hope you can see clearly that with even the most basic level of common sense.
Because remember, his whole plan was like to infiltrate this Aizen for as long as he needed to get close enough to slime him out. So if you have an that you know is smarter than you, has the ability to manipulate your perception of things, you get what I'm saying? You would want them to not know the true scope of the ace up your sleeve. So he's going like, oh yeah, my joint is the fastest. That's his whole premise. No, his whole premise is the poison. If it's the fastest, for example, Aizen, if they were to encounter it, might try to dodge it and get nicked by it, but be like, that's okay. As you can see, I can react to its speed. But because its actual danger is in the poison, Aizen would have sold himself right there, because as an intellectual, if all of your arguments are based off of false information, there is nothing you can do. You know, you've outsmarted your opponent if what they told you is true. In the event that it's not, which in this case it isn't, Gin would have the advantage, so he has an incentive to lie.
Or even the smallest amount of honesty, these unnecessary, deeply unserious conversations fall apart instantly, because at the end of the day, trying to cherry pick one databook sentence to overturn clear, explicit facts from the manga itself is not only stupid, it shows a complete misunderstanding of what databooks are even supposed to be used for in the first place. But furthermore, I also want to point out that even outside of the truly flagrant examples, where even something as simple as a literal page turn solves the issue, even outside of these cases, in similar situations like this, everyone still should know better. Like take the example of Kirin from Naruto. In the manga itself, it is literally and verbatim stated that Kirin moves at lightning speed. Not only is it stated,
Kishimoto even
goes out of his way to explain why this is the case. That is, because Kirin is just natural lightning. That Sasuke redirects downward, it will move at the speed that natural lightning moves at, that is, lightning speed. So this is not some vague interpretation. This is not a headcanon. This is a basic, explicit fact. And yet, you'll still see people try to argue their way around it with the most absurd stretches imaginable. Some will say, oh well, Zetsu isn't a high-level combatant, so how can he know Kirin's exact speed? Now, I want you to really think about how silly that is. You do not need to be a high-level combat genius to know the speed of lightning. Natural lightning moves at lightning speed. That is basic common sense. And again, I want you all to remember the context. The author is literally going out of his way to both state the speed and give an explanation behind it, with there being absolutely nothing within this scene that would contradict it or call it into question. So that's silly.
Kishimoto is so fire for that. You can see the water on them and the water bouncing off them because the rain's dropping. But especially in this Sasuke panel, you can see it so well, bro. Oh my goodness, what a great art.
Furthermore,
what a great artist.
You'll also hear people say things like, well, Kakashi was stated to have cut lightning when he was young. Thus, Kirin must be faster than lightning speed. Now again, putting aside certain things.
Not necessarily true. There's nuances. If I know where lightning is going to strike and I'm already there, and I just hold my hand up and lightning gets cut in half, that doesn't mean I have reaction time to cut lightning. It's also similar to, like, to give an example directly from Bleach, with Owatsu Nimaya cutting the dude's blast in half. That, like, scene alone doesn't state, oh, I have the reaction time of this blade or this bullet, your bullet speed, which is like light speed, it's energy. No, he literally just held it out. He literally states, oh no, I didn't do anything. I didn't even cut. I just held the sword. Your bullet touched the sword, which didn't cut your bullet in half. So it's like, there are nuances in everything, dog.
Things like the ambiguity of the specifics surrounding that Kakashi feat. Let's just think about this for a second. How does Kakashi cutting lightning when he was younger magically translate into no high-level attack in Naruto, thus can ever be lightning speed or slower again? Especially when the attack we're talking about is explicitly described as natural lightning and explicitly stated to be moving at lightning speed. Do you see how ridiculous this is? Any sane person, anyone not determined to twist the verse into knots, can see how foolish that argument is. But anyway, what matters for this video is how databooks get dragged into this. You'll have popular Naruto scalers who, because this video is...
It's actually tough. I like there's 5 streaks of lightning, like the original branches, branching off his hand, minus this one. I like that it still actually follows the shape of what a conventional hand is.
Is how data books get dragged into this. You'll have popular Naruto scalers who, because they think lightning speed isn't fast enough to overinflate their series, they thus go hunting for a data book translation like these two that describes Kirin as
Wow.
light speed. And now again, just thinking like a normal human being whose mind has
Mind you, it is not light speed, it's the speed of lightning. And yes, it would blow you away without the time to blink, because that's who says the speed of that is 1/1000th of a second. So for most people who are not trying to blink quickly, you get what I'm saying? Your blinking speed is going to be a lot slower than 1/1000th of a second.
not been absolutely corroded by the moronic environment of online power scaling. We have the manga, the source material itself, telling us directly that Kirin moves at lightning speed and telling us why it moves at lightning speed. But we're supposed to throw out what the source material says because a secondary summarizing document, a data book, happens to use a looser, more exaggerated translation that says Kirin is light speed. Are we seriously supposed to pretend these moronic arguments have even the slightest hint of legitimacy instead of treating them like the brainless slop they obviously are? Again, I really want you to understand the depths of stupidity we're dealing with here. It would be one thing if someone brought up something like the Lightfang Databook statement that says it is light speed, whether you personally like that feat or not, or want to argue exaggeration. A light-based jutsu moving at light speed is completely reasonable. And more importantly, there's nothing in the series itself that directly or even indirectly contradicts it. But with Kirin, we have a direct statement with a clear explanation directly from the manga contradicting the databook exaggeration. And somehow, people still try to argue that the databook is what we should use in this situation. Come on now, everyone knows better. And by the way, just to be super clear, it's not only random Discord or Reddit Joe Schmoes that are pushing these sorts of arguments.
Everybody,
you see,
bro.
Even some of the most popular YouTube power scalers, like
Not swag, Kage. I mean, this is from 45 months ago. I think that says, I hope that doesn't say minutes. Oh, it says minutes. Please, bro, swag is the GOAT, bro. No way. Speed, please, I need this. Kakashi cut lightning, move faster than it. See, you see what I'm saying? So what they're saying here is, yo, a child moved at lightning speed. Because of that, and this is in the past, these adults that scale significantly higher would have to move faster. So then you use that premise to go, if this attack was supposed to be a new attack to defeat an Itachi that's significantly stronger than Kakashi, they then say it would not make sense for it to be the same speed as lightning. However, as we just saw, the direct source material states, I am not adding anything to this. I am just controlling this. So as it is lightning being controlled, you can argue it's slightly slower than lightning, but for sure, by common sense metrics, you can't argue that it's faster. Because anyone who knows anything about physics, if something's moving and it changes directions, by definition, it has to slow down. Even if you don't want it to, it will slightly slow down. And that's due to things like tangential acceleration, etc. So this argument is cooked. There's no IQ behind that. But like I said, if you believe this, the cutting lightning thing, moving faster than it, rather than like a situation where, oh, lightning was going to strike, I knew it was going to strike, I just did this, and it cut in half. If you believe that, then you build that whole argument to make sense. But if you understand the nuances of this, then this whole thing, it immediately kind of becomes debunked.
Swag Kage, and even major platforms like Versus Battle Wiki, one of the biggest and most reputable scaling sites, are doing this.
Please.
So this isn't a fringe issue at all. This is a systemic problem. And as a general point, you can always find some data book that says something that supports whatever insane claim you want. For example, as we already discussed, it is overwhelmingly clear that Gin's Bankai, in its base state, is slower than Mach 500. Even people who don't like that fact usually won't try to inflate it much beyond this Mach 500 speed. But of course, if you search long enough, you can always find that tiny but cancerously persistent minority who claim that despite the manga clearly explaining Gin's Bankai speed is relative to sound, we should just throw that away because the French version of a databook phrases it as light speed. Again, it is genuinely silly. And I would even go so far as to argue that it adds to the toxicity and unpalatability of the online power scaling.
See, and then this, because we'll use this statement, oh, so as people were relative to him in this art, and we have a direct multiplier of the main character, multiply his strength by at least 50 times from that arc. Because of that, everybody has moved 50 times this speed, which means 50 times the speed of light, which then You know what I'm saying? If a bunch of arguments are built off of one founding principle that is not true, everything changes. It is the common statement that the more you know, the less you know, because once you know something, the branches of things that you can understand increase.
Discourse, because to treat these sort of arguments as if they carry even a fraction of legitimacy only serves to aid the spread of this nonsense like wildfire and foster an environment where people can make any insane claim they want and get rewarded for their insanity. And again, even outside of the glaring over-the-top examples, even when we look at the more subtle cases, the arguments people make are still incredibly silly and honestly just frustrating to deal with. You see, a great example of this is the old Naruto is planetary meta that circulated for years,
The
that came
meta.
entirely from Naruto Databooks, where certain dramatic, exaggerated
Oh
title lines
nah.
such as, where in the third Databook, Kuruma title
Kurama could
statement
burn the
says,
world or
sealed
something.
inside Naruto is a powerful force that could easily turn the world to ash. And in the fourth
Yeah.
Databook, where the Biju Bomb title statement says, it makes the earth shivers and the heavens tremble, were taken literally. Now, any regular person
Mind you, hyperbolic statements. It's like if someone moves that fast and it creates a sonic boom, I wouldn't just say they move at a speed that makes thunder shiver due to its velocity. I would say a speed so loud that the earth quakes beneath their feet. I'm not talking about the entire earth. I'm talking about the earth of someone close to them because that's the speed of a sonic boom. That's the sound of a sonic boom.
with basic common sense and a normal level of language literacy, and someone who isn't drowning in this endless online upscaling mindset, would obviously default to not treating those dramatic, promotional sounding databook lines as hard factual power scaling statements. And anyone spreading those claims, if they had even a shred of intellectual honesty, would not even be spreading those claims in the first place, because they know when you actually look, you see tons of equally exaggerated titles, descriptions, and flavor text that clearly aren't meant to be taken literally. Like, in the fourth Databook, Tamari's title statement says that she's able to blow the entire universe away.
No, that's
so
actually
Tamari has a universal
nefarious.
attack potency now. And some Naruto fans will claim that, oh no, the universe is
Hey, she was born one day before me. That's actually tough.
just a fan mistranslation. What is really supposed to be there is
I think we had the same blood type
instead of
too.
universe. But again, even if we were to accept this, a
I'm
world
taller
usually
though, of
refers to a
course.
planet. So just like our world splitter Kinshiki, Temari, who can blow away the whole world, is also at least planet level. And don't forget Chujiro, who took a direct slash
But if she's universal, do you get what I'm saying? This upscaling starts becoming ridiculous.
from the world splitting obliterator of all things Kinshiki. He too should at least be planet level, right? And there are other characters like Raido, whose title in the second Databook
Mind you, the creator said, "Yo, there's no guns in this." Yo, why is everybody bored of August, bro? It's bringing a smile to my face. But yeah, the creator said, "Yo, we don't have guns in this bit because how are we supposed to react to guns?" We just stated that Kieran's faster than sound, but Kieran is a right thing that can be controlled. A bullet is such a small thing that if shot at a similar speed, it would be hard for you to dodge it. You get what I'm saying? Because you need the perception to see it. Versus Kieran, which is this huge, bigger than lightning thing that you can see. So if you have the capacity to move at a speed to dodge, you know what you're dodging. You know what I'm saying? So even arguing these people are faster, the creator is not chatting. He's not capping, right? People get their arms cut off, so a bullet can pierce your body, bro. Unless you have a Susanoo or something of that nature.
says that he has an indomitable heart and soul that can drive away even a fierce god. So this other side character is literally comparable to a god now. And then in the fourth Databook, the title statement for the Mind Swap Jutsu says that it is impossible to avoid. So clearly no one can dodge it, guys. And in this same fourth Databook, the title for Madara's Great Fire Annihilation literally says that it turns all things to ash and there is no way to escape it. And if you even wanted to think about arguing
Exclamation
about
marks, by the way.
of Madara's Great Fire Annihilation, I'll just refer you to where it literally says there's no use arguing about it. So by now I'm hoping you see how silly it is for someone to try to use these obviously exaggerated title statements as literal scalable facts.
Just look at the source.
They don't mention that. But even without that broader context, even without reading every data book or digging through the source material, a normal functioning adult should instantly recognize that these types of claims are ridiculous. For instance, imagine someone telling you, without any context, that a JJK data book, well really the volume 8 summary, says something like, if any demons, which presumably means a curse, eats one
Multiple. So Sukuna has the ability to destroy the world. That would be like the argument they'd be able to make.
Of Sukuna's fingers, they gain the power to destroy the world. Now, if you have read JJK, you know this is clearly false, as we've seen curses like Fingerbearer who have eaten Sukuna's finger and has
Still
not
got
demonstrated
washed.
anywhere close to world-ending power. However, the important point that I want to emphasize here is that even without reading or watching JJK, just using basic common sense
You
and
can
basic
tell that
language
this
literacy,
would
this
not be the
obviously
case.
seems like the kind of statement that your default should be to interpret as a literary exaggeration rather than a literal quantifiable claim. And
Right.
even outside of common sense and basic literacy, we need to ask, what does destroy the world even mean? Do they mean destroy it in a single attack DBZ style?
Or change the concepts of things of that nature, or destroy infrastructure. It wouldn't be able to run the same because this person will be at the top. Things of that nature. Those nuances matter.
Or do they mean that given enough time and enough attacks, the world would eventually be ruined? Because these are two drastically different ideas, representing two drastically different power brackets. And again, does destroy the world or turn the world to ash mean wiping out all life and structures on the surface? Or does it mean exploding the entire planet? Again, these are completely different things, completely different calculations, completely different implications. These aren't nitpicks. These are the basic due diligence questions that anyone who genuinely wants to scale something and who possesses even a modicum of intellectual honesty should be asking. Now, I go into this in much more detail in my power scaling problem video, especially when I talk about
I think we actually reacted to this. This is on the channel.
The levels of evidence and the substantiation required to make high-tier claims. So if you want the full breakdown, you can watch that. But let me just repeat the core axiom here. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. As the level of the claim escalates, the quality of the evidence needs to escalate with it. But anyway, I won't keep ranting about this. I know I already covered a lot of these points in my The Power Scaling Problem video, and honestly, I probably should have just called this video The Power Scaling Problem, Part 2. However, I really wanted to make this video around databooks, because as I said in the introduction, most of the problems with power scaling reveals itself in its purest, most concentrated form around any conversation involving databooks. And frankly, in my initial power scaling problem video, I don't think I adequately expressed my frustration with this online power scaling environment and why these conversations get so exhausting. You see, the truth is that I'm tired of these moronic debates. I'm tired of seeing the same bad arguments being recycled over and over again by people who haven't read the source material, or worse, people who have read it, understand it, and still choose to ignore it because it gets in the way of whatever agenda they're trying to push. And more than that, I'm tired of people in the power scaling community who do know better.
I wonder why we react like that. I think I might have forgot to submit an assignment. Don't even worry about that though.
Treating these arguments as if they have even the slightest veneer of legitimacy. I'm tired of seeing people politely entertain these takes as if they're genuine points of discussion rather than the obvious nonsense they are, because doing that only encourages the cycle. It lets the most moronic, agenda-driven interpretations spread unchecked, all while hiding behind the shield of, well, it's all just opinion. No, it's not all just opinion. Some interpretations are simply wrong, some claims are simply dumb, and pretending otherwise just drags the quality of discussion down. So when someone, even a big and popular creator, pushes one of these ridiculous takes, their popularity doesn't magically make the argument any better. It doesn't make it correct. It doesn't make it respectable. It's still the same fundamentally flawed, literacy-ignoring, context-ignoring nonsense, and we need to ruthlessly call this stuff out, not out of malice, but because this pervasive level of stupidity is exactly what prevents us from having the fun discussions. It's what prevents people from actually appreciating the joy of power scaling, the part of it that's analytical, creative, and genuinely engaging. If we don't push back against the bad arguments, the entire community gets buried under them, and instead of enjoying debates about feats, abilities, cosmology, or narrative intent, we get stuck arguing about mistranslated databook lines, exaggerated taglines, and outright fabricated interpretations. And that's the tragedy here, because power scaling can be incredibly fun when it's done honestly, when it's done with care.
Yeah, you have to like look at it how we did when we were kids, and just the fact that like this is something that has value in the fact that it gives you a logical way to compare two things. But again, people don't know the nuances of comparison. For example, if your dad, imagine you're a kid and say your parents say you finish dinner, you can have ice cream. You finish the dinner, they can choose to give you the ice cream or not. Those two things are not synonymous. However, in a reality that you do receive the ice cream, by default, you had to have finished your dinner because this option wasn't completed until the dinner was finished. So if you were in this reality where the ice cream was received, the dinner had to be finished. But there was also a reality where the dinner was finished and the ice cream wasn't received, because think of it sequentially, right? 3 is bigger than 2 and 1, but just because you have 2 doesn't mean you have 3. Just because someone says, yeah, the number is bigger than 1, doesn't mean the number has to be 2 or 3. There's an infinite number of numbers that could exist between that. You get what I'm saying? And people don't have sometimes not the common sense, but the willingness to put the effort forward to realize quantitatively, this is the bigger thing, right? Which means if something's behind this, then yes, this thing right here had to have been achieved to get to this bigger thing. But when there's a smaller thing, you can't put it above something bigger and just go, this thing's smaller. Okay, that doesn't prove anything. You get what I'm saying? Oh, yeah, the number in your problem X, the number you're looking for, it's smaller than 5. Now what? You don't know what the answer is. But if you say the number you're looking for is greater than 0 and smaller than 2 and it has to be a whole number, you know your answer has to be 1. That's how an argument of comparisons, direct comparisons, even in mathematics, it's something called a direct comparison theorem. It can only be satisfied when you have something that is smaller and something that is larger, and that tells you the place of something in the middle. Or you have something that is a number that's like smaller, and then you have something even smaller than that, that tells you the thing that you're looking for is in between those two things. But you cannot take something smaller by its lonesome, one thing, and use that to go, something's going to be bigger or something's going to be smaller. You need something else to compare it to.
And when it respects the source material, but nonsense like this suffocates that joy, at least for me. But anyway, that's the video, guys. Let me know what you thought about it.
Shout out my dog, Steinixos. You know what I'm saying? The Databook problem. Appreciate y'all boys for watching. If you learned something, comment the number 77. And yeah, as always, stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. And I'll catch you boys in the next.